are listening to The Thought Leaders Show with the world's cutting-edge, hottest innovators, influencers, and impact makers today. If you are looking for inspiration and motivation, listen in. Welcome to The Thought Leaders Show. Now, here's your host.
Hi, everyone. This is Tammy Patzer, and I'm really excited because I have a kind of a cool, unique guest today, Jeffrey Wolfe, and he is the creator of AdventureCEO.tv, and he considers himself a disruptor, and it's really fascinating for me when I meet people who are in that place where they're doing things that are kind of creating a little bit of havoc. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and let him tell us about his life-changing experience that has led him to this point in time. So welcome, Jeff.
Hi, Tamara. Thanks for having me.
This is pretty exciting. Like I said, can you tell me what happened to you when you were a teenager?
Well, it was really in my late teens when I was going to college. I had the opportunity to live at home with my parents, and I had had dinner. Holiday season. We were studying hard. I was working part time, and I had dinner with my parents. I was supposed to go out with my study group. We were going to go shoot pool, and I just had a nice evening with my parents. And I looked at my mom and I said, I'm enjoying this evening so much. I'm tired. I'm just, half considering calling my friends and say, you know what, you go ahead without me. I'm just going to stay home and then go to bed early. And she looked at me and goes, no, go out and have fun with your friends. And I did. We had a nice evening. I got home at 3:00 in the morning, and there's my father washing dishes, which was very unusual. And to put it bluntly, he just turned and looked at me and said, your mother had a heart attack and died not too long after you left. And it was one of those moments that occurs in life where I could see everything that they had planned. They worked hard. They were kids of the Depression, the Great Depression. They got through World War II. They had worked hard. We'd gone one vacation in the summer, but we didn't really live a grandiose life. Didn't have really anything we wanted for either. But they had all these plans that they had made. And they were just about 2-3 years away from retirement when this happened, and it changed everything. And that was a defining moment for me because it really underscored how we need to play big. We need to play now. And while deferred gratification is good, we still need to make sure we're enjoying the journey and living a lot of our adventures, a lot of our bucket list, if you will, along the way.
Wow. What a shocking thing to happen, to, have that. Well, it really struck me. I had an emotional reaction, but it was really kind of cool in the way that when your mom said, go ahead and go have fun, that your last time with her was that really positive experience. So yes. You actually came home, your entire world was turned upside down. So what happened at that time, as you look back at it, that made you somebody that is just fascinated now by the disruption?
Well, there was a lot of good that came out of that. I mean, my father and I had a good relationship, which as an adult, I appreciate that, especially when I talk to so many men today that didn't grow up with that type of a mentoring father. And what we grow up with is what we think is normal, right? And I thought, well, everybody has that. And it's like, wow, that actually seemed rather unique given what I know today. And so he and I got closer than ever. We did some things that we'd always wanted to do. And it motivated me to stretch farther and do things today than I would have. Part of that being my first job out of college put me on a team that was really, I didn't know it at the time, but was really chartered with disrupting the corporation that we worked for. We were bringing in new processes, changing the way work was being done. and that launched a career of making positive disruptions in how companies operate and how they approach their marketplace.
It's funny because I think that I've always been a disruptor, but I didn't know that I was a disruptor.
Yes.
Because it's like, well, no, don't do it this way, do it this way. And you just do things, but you don't always have the words for it. So before we got...
That's an excellent point. If I can't, I didn't know any of this at the time when I was going through a lot of these experiences. Most of this I've learned in hindsight.
Yeah.
And that's a great point. We do what we do at the time, what seem to be best. I had a little bit of a rebellious nature. You may find that hard to believe. I've been riding motorcycles since I was a teenager also. And we do what we do best, what we think is best at the time, make the best decisions possible. And then if we learn from it, that's where we gain the kind of incredible insight that you have.
It's funny that you talk about the motorcycles. I just turned 61, and one of my big things when I was younger, I said, well, when I turn 60, I'm going to be a motorcycle mama. And I'm still not, but I just think that's funny because I thought that was being a wild woman, because I've been real responsible. And it's funny how we don't really understand what we're really doing. And earlier, before we started our call, I was looking at the word paradigm, and I just wanted to say the first time I ever saw the word paradigm, I thought it was paradigm because I sounded the word out. So, what exactly is a paradigm?
It's an excellent question. A paradigm is really the framework that we have for thinking about the world. For a company, it's the framework for how they think about what they do, the way they run their operations, the framework for thinking about the market that they serve.
So all a paradigm really is a framework. And then when you disrupt it, that's basically saying, hey, this framework is no longer working. So when you
or sometimes, and this is even when it's not working and it's obvious that's not easy to do. We call it breaking the frame. It's not easy to do. What's even harder is sometimes the framework is still working. However, it could be so much better. And we still have to find a way to break the frame and make changes to be able to go farther than we thought we could.
It's so interesting to me because, again, you look at your life and you think about disruption and paradigms as a business thing, but it's not always about business. It's the way that we live our lives. And you've actually created this TV show, The Inventure CEO. So how does that fit into all of this thinking that you've processed over the years?
Well, because it focuses on leadership insights. So it's like, what are the things that other entrepreneurs, modern day adventurers are learning from the experience that they have? The journey that they have that's really, for entrepreneurs, it's really about serving a community and building a business around that service. But what do they learn along the way that they can share with others that are either on the same path or just getting started? Because we find that a lot of entrepreneurs are hungry for that peer-to-peer conversation and can feel isolated in the journey as well while building their business.
Well, I hear that because earlier this year, I actually went on a trip to Alaska, and I was running around with my phone chasing bumblebees. I was in the moment, and everyone was laughing at me because I was so in the now. And that was such a big adventure for me to disconnect from being behind the computer, because I spend a good portion of my weeks, literally I'm, 2 feet away from a computer screen, and I talk to people from all over the world. But that adventure, when it just cleared me, and when I came back, I had much bigger visions. And I don't know if it was because Alaska was so big and humongous, or if just having that break and being in the now helped me to see that I could do and become so much more than, this person, hiding behind a computer screen. So do you do a lot of adventures in your world?
Not as much as I would like to. However, whenever I can. We did went on a 6-day motorcycle tour through Utah and parts of northern Arizona, Nevada, Colorado last summer. Went whitewater rafting in Colorado. Not too the year before that. We've done horseback riding trips. So still want to get out to an archaeological dig, but yes,
that sounds like fun. I've heard that near Albuquerque. I was staying in Albuquerque. I was on a TV show there, and I stayed at this hotel. I think it's gone now. It's called the Blue Hotel. And they were telling me that about 10 miles out of town, there's a really good place where you can see the old petroglyphs.
Ooh, yes.
And that's in right outside of Albuquerque. And again, in Albuquerque, they have the big balloons. I mean, there's so many things that around the world that, things to see and things to do. It's really fascinating to me.
Mm-hmm.
So you've gone,
but it shifts our perception.
Yeah,
like you were talking about when you went to Alaska, because sometimes a couple degrees shift in perception, everything looks different. It's like driving down a road one way through countryside, and then coming back later in the day, and it's like, wow, it looks so much different going the other direction. That has a big psychological impact, physiological impact that helps us, like you were saying, when we get back to what we do on a day-to-day basis professionally. That helps helps give us a different perception on that, to see opportunities in a different light.
So with what you're doing with the adventure concept, what is the purpose behind this? Besides, obviously, I must be getting it because I'm going, oh, you shift perspective. But what is your motivation with all this?
Entrepreneurs, I believe, are the biggest force for good in the world, because they're building a future for their family. They're building a future for the teams that work with their companies, and they help their community that they serve. So they're really expanding opportunities for everyone. CEO can also stand not just for chief executive officer, but continually expanding opportunities. So we want to help CEOs of growing entrepreneurial companies to be able to have a conversation with other successful entrepreneurs to help build their businesses bigger and faster in order to expand opportunities for everyone. And we use the adventure themes and the adventure experiences as a means of again, shifting that frame, shifting the paradigm.
So as an entrepreneur then, so are you having adventures? Are you putting together adventures where people meet, or how does that work?
Yes. One of our programs is an invitation-only program where we'll bring together a small group, say 5 to 7 entrepreneurs, and we'll go out and whitewater raft for 2 days. But also create times where when we're sitting down to eat, breaking bread's a longstanding tradition, and over meals and around, relaxing in the evenings, to have a conversation about business. We can talk about, well, what's working for you? When we're doing this, how did you get past this point with growing your business? How are you dealing with changing regulations, or we've got a shift in our marketplace and we're trying to navigate. Oh yeah, we dealt with that. Here's what we did. To have that type of conversation and to help, to collaborate with each other and to help move forward faster. And at times, I got this feedback from someone at a recent event where they were going, whoa, why are you doing that? That doesn't seem consistent. And I thought about it for a second. I go, you're right. I hadn't looked at it that way. So we changed some of what we were doing. So there's a lot of value in those kind of conversations. The adventure environment is what creates that shift in perception. It expands the possible.
Yeah, I can see that, because again, the adventure I was on was a friend of mine, his sister and his nephew, and then some random woman that showed up who became my roommate. So it was basically 5 people who had, I had no connection to four of them, yet we were together for 2 weeks, and it was amazing. Like, for example, the teamwork development and the
Yes.
leadership development that comes out of these, it was a trip. And the most beautiful part about this whole trip was I just said, here's some money. And I showed up at the airport on time. And then I didn't have any expectations of what it was going to be. And that was probably one of the most powerful things, because I just went with the flow, and it allowed me to accept, these four different people. And of course I had my opinions about, that's kind of odd. But at the same time, it was like, well, that's how they deal with stress and with life. But for example, a lot of the trip was not planned. It was like we'd see a sign, hey, you want to go see that? Yeah, we have time. And we'd go, and we ended up, petting dog sled puppies because we saw a sign on the side of the road, and we did it. Another one, we asked some guy, well, you live here, where would you suggest we go? And he sent us up on this mountain to go see the flowers. And it was really opening. So you're literally planning adventures so that small groups of people can have that experience, and they grow and develop in whatever way that they need to grow and develop.
Yes. And it's a mastermind dynamic, if you will. It's not really programmed content, because we know what we'd like to ask. If we can get around the right people, we know the questions we'd like to ask to pick their brain. So, for example, and we'll bring in also as part of the adventure someone who's built a business much larger, 10 to 100 times the size of everyone else that's at the table, if you will.
Yes.
For example, imagine fishing for big game in the Pacific Ocean, big game meaning like 1,100-pound sailfish.
Okay. Yep. Never
Spending
done.
2-3 days doing that, but doing it with one of the top internet marketing and digital, search engine optimization experts in the world.
Yes.
So have that be able to have some business conversation around the play, but it's the backdrop of the play that, as you pointed out, opens up the mind to other possibilities, and being open to the comments and the feedback that'll be coming from the people you're spending that time with.
Kind of almost like the Shark Tank, except you're not there in that tense pitch where they're circling around you. It's more like having the dolphin helpers come
exactly
with you.
That's exactly what I was thinking. You said Shark Tank, and I was picturing, no, it's more like swimming with the dolphins, where it's relaxed, it's fun, they're there to help.
Right.
Playful.
Because what I really like about what you're saying is, because this is something that I've toyed with a lot. It's like, how do you get to $1 million or $10 million or $1 billion if you've never been there? And
right.
If you, like someone who's been employed and you've always been an hourly worker, for example, you might say, well, gee, I want to make $100,000 or $1 million. But yet you've only ever made $35,000 your whole life. And that was actually what happened to me, because I'd been a newspaper editor, and the most I ever earned was like $45,000 a year. And to go from that hourly or that salaried employee mentality, where you're working for this, an increment of a paycheck every week or every 2 weeks, to going, you know what, that's not enough. I want to go up to, these 6 and 7 figure amounts, but I've never been there. You're literally saying that by going on an adventure, you could hang out with someone who's already been there, done that, and gain that benefit of being with someone who might have that one little insight that you need that could make all the difference.
And it could be business, it could be personal. Because I like you, I had never made more than, $40,000-$50,000 as an engineer. It was good money at the time, but I went from working in college. I worked my way through high school and college. So for 7 years, I worked basically for minimum wage, just a little bit more. Then I got an engineering job. I was like, oh, wow, this is a ton of money. That framed how I viewed what was possible, what success was. Then I got to spend more time. I love being by the water. So I got to spend time around people that owned yachts. So if you own a $300,000 sailboat or a $300,000 yacht, it's like, wow, what are these folks doing? How do they think about things? And I learned from that, and it expanded, broke that paradigm that I had, broke the frame, expanded how I looked at things and went, wow, okay. And what was interesting is a lot of those folks that are successful, they'll turn around and go, you know what? You can do this too. I don't know about you, but I get that 3:00 in the morning voice that goes, no, not you. Yeah, they can do this, but not you. What do you think? Who do you think you are to, and then fill in the blank?
It's interesting because every time I get that voice, I shut it down real quick. But it used to be that stopped me. And I know it stops many people because I'm in some Facebook groups. And like today, some woman was saying, I want to start a podcast, but what if nobody listens? What if nobody downloads it? And I'm saying, well, who cares? You just start and you do whatever it is. Because, for example, my very first podcast, I woke up one day and I had no idea what I was doing, but I started by interviewing coloring book artists.
Oh, wow.
And it was because at that time, everybody was talking about the adult coloring books. And so I went into this group and I asked permission from the owner of the group. I said, can I ask these people if I could interview them? And I ended up doing like 10 interviews with all of these coloring book publishers. And that was how I started doing interviews. And there was really no rhyme or reason because I had no concept of coloring book artists, but for whatever reason, that was what I started with. And then it grew from there. And so sometimes I think we just have to start somewhere. So with your TV show, what happens? Are your CEO adventures part of this show? Is it kind of like reality TV? Or what is it?
It's really more interviews.
Oh, okay.
So we haven't included any of the segments from Adventures yet. We have done live interviews. In our first episode, we interviewed a legendary custom guitar builder who was exhibiting at a trade show, at an industry event. So we got to do a live on scene, see the guitars, hear some of the music. We've done remote over the internet interviews. I just finished doing a whole series of interviews at the International Motorcycle Show in Long Beach. Motorcycles are close to my heart, but what was fascinating because I had a press credential. I was able to, and this comes back to what we were talking about a little bit earlier about the mindset. I'm talking to the corporate PR representative from Honda. And I'm looking at this guy and I'm thinking, oh my, because my first motorcycle when I was 16 was a Honda. And I'm looking at this guy, we were talking about that, and very gracious gentleman. And I just made an offhand comment. And I go, I never would have thought being on at that time in my life that I would end up doing an interview like that on a trade show floor with thousands of people around. We're attracting an audience. They're stopping, people were stopping to watch and listen to the interview. He delivered a great interview, incredible insight, some of the company history. And it was just kind of chills because I thought, wow, I'm just a kid from Ohio that likes to ride motorcycles. And all of a sudden here I am with a camera and a mic and we're doing a TV interview. And it was a good moment. Helps keep my self-interest in check a little bit. And at the same time, it was neat to be able to stand with someone like that and learn from them as part of the interview process.
Wow, that is cool. I love to interview people and talk to people because you always learn something, and just people in general are really fascinating. So you actually recently won an award. What award was that?
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. It was best show, most valuable show host of the month for the network we're on, Raven International TV. It's a new, to acknowledge the show host. They have, I believe, 30 plus hosts, 30 plus shows on their network, and they're acknowledging, who's based on the interview and how the promotions are put together, acknowledging the show host. And I was honored with the first award for show host of the month, which just had me speechless.
Well, congratulations.
It was a big honor.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about the Raven International TV network, because it's on, I believe, your show is available on like Roku and Apple TV and all of those types of television services, right?
Yes, so you can find Raven International TV on Roku, on Amazon Fire TV. We're still in the process of finishing the approvals and getting on Apple TV, but that's coming soon. And then the shows are also posted as podcasts to Spotify, Spreaker.com, and a lot of the major podcast sites.
Oh, so they're both video and audio
yes.
shows? Oh, that's really cool. I really, I just love it's that disruptive technology, breaking those paradigms of what's possible. It reminds me when I was, a kid and watching Star Trek, when they'd have the communicators and the video would come on, and I'd go, wow, someday. And of course, we're living in that someday now.
Yes.
So
I had a flip phone for way after they were cool and everybody else was moving to other style phones, just because of the Star Trek series when I was a kid.
Yep. Yeah, that was one of my favorite shows. And really, if you look at those shows, a lot of that technology is happening. And even the Jetsons, I used to watch the Jetsons in the flying cars. Mm-hmm. And I used to think about that. So are you looking for entrepreneurs to interview, or how does that work?
Yeah, we're always interested in connecting with entrepreneurs that to talk about what they're doing. And so we focus on mid-size companies, where we define as companies that are typically $10 million to $50 million in revenue. That's our first slice of how we define the market that we serve. However, I love to talk to entrepreneurs because a lot of times, like a young lady that we just interviewed, that'll be in our next episode, someone that's just starting out but is already winning awards. So it's about the story, the insights that they can share. We may say, you know what, that's not exactly what we had envisioned, but let's include that because we want to get that message out. We want to get their message out and share what they're learning with the rest of the entrepreneurs.
So if somebody wants to get in contact with you, what's the best way to do that?
They can go to adventureceo.tv. That's adventureceo.tv, or email me directly at Wolfe, WOLFE, at adventureceo.tv. Okay,
adventureceo.tv. That's a great, easy to remember URL. Before I let you go, Jeff, is there anything that you'd like to add? Great conversation.
Well, one thing I'd like to add is I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you today, but also to learn from you and other show hosts, other entrepreneurs, because it's really helping with the way I look at stuff. And I go, oh, wow, that would be okay. That's something we should try. So it's really, I so appreciate the opportunity to talk with you today. It's a big honor, and they continue to learn a lot from you and what you're doing as well.
Oh, well,
so really appreciate that. Keep up the great work.
Well, thank you. One of the things that you can do, which is how I flipped the podcast, I said, hey, I'm writing a book, and
yes,
you get to be on my podcast. And that's how 10 volumes of Women Innovators came to be, is conversations with all of these different women from the Women Innovators podcast. So you could do that too.
Yes. In fact, I have a book that's going to be coming out in April.
Oh, okay.
I'm hoping to move that to March, but it'll be out not later than April. Titled, the working title right now is Strike Lines, Ruined Careers, and Death Threats, Leading Change in Corporate America.
Wow. Well, I'm glad that I brought that up so that we could know that. So your book is coming out April 2020. So that's really cool. And then, of course, the TV show is the adventureceo.tv. Thank you so much, Jeff. I really appreciate all your time today.
Thank you so much for having me today, Tamara. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Everyone, this is Tammy Patzer. Go make it a beautiful day.
You've been listening to the Thought Leaders Show. To get all past shows and to get all future shows, go to thoughtleadersshow.com.